travel, adventure, and photography are so rewarding and fulfilling in so many ways. It's this juxtaposition of mentally challenging myself, physically challenging myself, and spiritually challenging myself. My name is Jody McDonald. I'm an adventure and documentary photographer, and I live in Sun Valley, Idaho. My love for photography started when I was a kid. I was born in Canada, but I moved to Saudi Arabia when I was 2 years old. And so every school break or holiday, we went somewhere that my parents had never been, which was everywhere. And early on, I got this glimpse into how amazing the world was. And going to these exotic places was just so fascinating to me. And I started dreaming about becoming Indiana Jones. Like, that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to keep having these amazing adventures. I did a Bachelor of Outdoor Recreation in university, and I decided to take a photography elective. And for me, it was like a light bulb going off. I was like, oh my God, this is how I can combine my passions of art and adventure. I didn't have any intention of where it was going to go, but it was just this aha moment of like, this is it. So I ended up getting a job as a photo editor in Vancouver, Canada, for one of Canada's largest outdoor companies. And it was great because I was still part of the outdoor community, but I was staring at photos of people having these outdoor adventures. And I was in the office. And after a year of that, I was like, no, I want to be on the other side. I want to be, the person taking these pictures, not editing. I quit my job and got this opportunity to start sailing in the South Pacific. And for me, that moment I was like, this is it. If I want to really get into photography, this is my opportunity, because I'm in these incredible places, experiencing, incredible cultures and people and places. This is the time I'm going to take it really seriously. I was getting printed more and more in kiteboarding and adventure magazines, outdoor magazines. And then I watched this movie called The Fall. And in it, there was this swimming elephant. I thought to myself, that is amazing. Is this like a Hollywood set, or is this actually real? By that point, I had sailed to a lot of parts of the world, and I couldn't figure out where that would be possible. I just thought to myself when I saw it, I was like, this is amazing. If this exists, I have to go photograph it. And I just was on this mission. I don't know why. I wanted to do it so badly. And I got off the boat and I went to the Andaman Islands and I found this elephant, and this elephant in particular, and his name is Vrajan. He was one of 10 elephants brought to the Andamans to help log the islands in the 80s. And they would swim the cut trees out to the barges that were anchored off the shore of these islands. And then once one island was logged, they would swim to the next island because they had no way to get the elephants onto a barge to transfer them. And this was the last elephant of this group to survive. And when I was in the Andamans, I just happened to meet a producer for the BBC. And she had asked me, what are you doing here? What are you photographing? And so I told her the story. And she was like, yes, and we're gonna publish it with the BBC. And my images went viral. And that for me was a huge turning point in my career, just in terms of exposure. A lot of people now know this photograph, but they don't necessarily know me. It was one of those huge milestones or stepping stones in my photography career. And I really loved it because it was a pure passion project that I just felt like I had to go do. My hope is to really inspire people to become more empathetic, care more about the planet. And when we all do that, then the world would be a better place to be in. In my life, I see so many people that have these goals that seem insurmountable because they're just thinking of the end goal, and it prevents them from even starting. And all they really need to do is take that first step. This trip has been on my bucket list for a very long time, primarily because I love this part of the world. I really love the Himalayas. I really enjoy the Buddhist culture, and I fell in love with India many years ago. Between the culmination of the pandemic, my father passing away, I also had a health scare where I was told I had 1 to 4 years to live because they found a tumor in my abdomen. After they removed it, they told me it was benign and I was totally fine. It was a great reminder and motivation for me to not squander any more time. Last week, I flew into Delhi. I was looking for a motorcycle. As a foreigner, you can't buy a motorcycle. I had no idea who to talk to. I just got in a tuk-tuk and I just went out into the world and just started asking for what I wanted. And it just became this super cool process from knowing nothing to just leaving my hotel room. And then before I knew it, I was in this place where I met this guy who could help me. It took me like 3 days, and now I have a bike, and now I've already driven 1,000 kilometers. And yesterday, I remember I got off the bike and I was like, this is happening. I'm actually doing it. And a week ago, I didn't even know if it was possible. I'm not completely sure where I'm going to go. I'm trying to ride along the Tibetan Plateau to start, and then I plan to go into different countries. I'm just going to wander, basically. Having the Z by HP partnership has really enabled me to bring this dream to life. I can't speak enough about how important durability is with my equipment, especially my computer, because it is my lifeline to getting my work done. And yesterday was a great example. I was on the road on the motorcycle for 13 hours, and I was on horrible road conditions, going over rocks, mudslides, dirt roads for hours. So I need to know that when I get to the hotel, I can open the computer and it'll work. I literally could not do what I do without the ZBook Studio. The question I get asked the most is what kind of gear I use. On this trip, I have 3 camera bodies. I have a Canon R5, a Leica M, and a Leica XU, 3 GoPros, and I have 2 drones, the DJI Air 2S and the DJI Mini 3 Pro. With the ZBook Studio, I can take it to all the different environments that I travel to, whether it be the rainforest or the desert, and it's basically got the power of a desktop. When I'm, sitting in a remote jungle somewhere, I know I can rely on it to do what I really need it to do. So that makes it priceless for me. As image files are getting larger, in addition to me doing video, I have bigger files that I need to deal with. So having this discrete graphics card and memory is essential for me. It's so efficient that I can just get the job done as quickly as possible and move on to the next thing I need to do. When I'm out in the world taking photos, I don't even know specifically what I'm looking for. It's usually this moment in time that I think is really interesting. It could be a person, a place, or just something that's happening that I think is amazing, and I want to really document it. And I shoot them in RAW. So to bring them to life, I download them into the ZBook Studio. The advantage of having an SD card port has been really helpful for me because now I don't have to carry extra dongles, and I can just put in my SD card and download the images directly, which makes my workflow more efficient. When I import images into Lightroom, they're raw, so I have to do some editing. My first step is exposure levels, and I get the overall exposure the way I want it. Usually subtract some saturation and add a bit of vibrance to it. And then I work on contrast, but just very minimally. And then I'll take it into Photoshop, where I do more zonal editing. So I'll work on very specific sections of the photograph, and I'll work on the highlights and the shadows to try to make the image more 3D, to give it a lot more depth and contrast. With the ZBook Studio, I'm able to use the Adobe Creative Suite applications seamlessly, which allows me to stay in the zone and do what I love to do. So say there's a photo of a portrait of somebody's face or whatever the subject matter is. That's where I want the viewer to focus the most. So that's the area I'll really concentrate on. And the more contrast you can bring to that, it'll give it a lot more depth, and it'll make the viewer really want to focus on those specific areas of the image that you want them to focus on. And it'll really draw people into the image. So it's really important. Having a color accurate display is critical to my workflow because I need to know that the colors I see while editing on the screen are how they're exported and shared with the world. The high performance of the ZBook Studio allows me to focus on editing my photos and video without any lags or interruptions. With noise cancellation built in, I can literally work anywhere. So whether I'm in a crowded cafe or in a busy hotel, it's amazing for collaborating while on the road because it doesn't matter how much is going on around me. There's so many new things that I'm doing on this trip. I have never done a long motorcycle trip before, ever. I'm starting a YouTube channel. I have no idea even how to do that. I'm learning as I go. I'm learning everything as I go, basically. And I love the challenge of that. One of the things I love about riding a motorcycle is that you really feel like you're part of the landscape. I'm immersed in where I am. I think we're in a world right now where we're inundated with so much negativity that I really want to find these glimmers of hope along the way in my journey that give me hope for the future. And now is a more important time than ever for people to kind of go out into the world and get a global perspective and know that we're humans. We all have the same needs and wants. Z by HP has been the most supportive partner I have ever had. No matter what I dream of, they are behind it 100%. They've helped push my creative barriers in so many different ways, whether it was through collaboration, learning how to fly drones, and now through this motorcycle trip project. No matter what I dream up, they are 100% behind it, and I couldn't be more ecstatic about having them as a partner for all my creative endeavors. Most people assume that you need to have a foundation of knowing how to do these things before you can ever embark on something like this, and I want to show people that that's simply not true, and especially as a female. I lived at sea for 10 years. And I don't know how long I'm going to be doing this motorcycle trip. I'm just going with the flow. You just have to leave your house. You just have to go out into the world, and you just have to take one step at a time and go for it. And before you know it, it's happening. You know, you're just like, wow, I'm doing it. And I didn't even know I could do it. I didn't even know how to do it. But this is how you do it.